For a mama craba at the back number 1 channel and news echoso any day a buy or my name your call near share so that's not funny at Bremunamate yet and some are echoso any day a buy or my name na emu is only one say beto jar na do more frame saying ye better not any account ye pay a dear chamontano Omuko oti ensem ayokoso any day a buy or my name near bar na say become more here the besoso edi ama yashrefu.
Up to inquire into the petition seeking the removal of the Chief Justice, Leadership Justice Tokornoo, begins their work, their hearing process tomorrow. We'll tell you what the process will be in the coming days as they start their work in camera tomorrow. And the Constitution gives us some pointers to it, and this is in the detail of a statement that we got earlier today from the presidency signed by Felix Kwachufosu, who's a spokesperson to the president and the minister in charge of government communications, to the effect that the 5-member committee established by the president to investigate the 3 petitions filed against the suspended Chief Justice Tokornoo is set to begin its hearings tomorrow. That's Thursday, May 15. The committee will give you the details of it, the composition of this committee, just to remind you, and then also how the way forward will be. Dennis Pabe with Esquire is joining me in the studio for a conversation on this. Just a quick backtrack. Let's recall the constitution of the membership of this 5-member committee who starting their work tomorrow. Dennis.
Well, Alfred, so let's start off with the committee, 5-member committee chaired by Justice Gabriel Palmer, a Justice of the Supreme Court. Also on that committee is Justice Samuel Kwame Asedu, also a Justice of the Supreme Court. We have former Auditor General Daniel Yaodomelevu also on that particular panel. Major Flora Dalugu of the Ghana Armed Forces is also on that committee. And then we have Professor James Sefa Jisa, also an associate professor of the University of Ghana, on that committee. This committee, we know, is being put together pursuant to Article 1466 of the 1992 Constitution. And if you've been following this discussion, by now you will be familiar with the whole provision and all the provisions under Article 146, because it's basically been from 1 running through all to clause 11. But this committee, like I said, was set up pursuant to Article 1466, and that is where the committee has been put together, specifying who should be the members.
Right.
Now the question is, what is the next line of action?
Sure.
This communication coming from the presidency. The presidency simply says that the committee is going to start hearing. I have heard some people construe that to mean that it is tomorrow that the committee is going to start its work. But that's, unfortunately, is not the true reflection of it. Hearing has its own meaning when it comes to law. So what, in a sense, the committee will be doing tomorrow would be by way of beginning to hear evidence, or people beginning to testify before the committee. So it's not as though the committee is going to start its work tomorrow. In any case, it was, the committee, the prima facie case, when it was established, the petitions were referred to the committee.
Yes.
So it means that the committee already has the petitions. They've been looking into the petitions, but hearing, as we are now told, will begin tomorrow. And that is by way of witnesses now beginning to appear, to begin to testify, and all the looking on the inquiry would begin tomorrow. So it's not as if the committee is going to start its work tomorrow. Well, so after the clause 6, what follows will be clause 7, and that is what has been announced, that the committee appointed under clause 6.
Other for any for and some so any ever and I just was so with a measure pass the watching air fans which are fair Eddie Amame comment section. Young query, young could see near to us.
Of this article shall inquire into the petition and recommend to the president whether the Chief Justice ought to be removed from office. That's what it simply says, and that's what has been announced. This has its own matters, because there's been a lot of conversation as to the nature of how this should happen. But of course, like I did indicate, it is the case where whoever is alleging that somebody has done wrong will appear before the committee to put their case before the committee. The person on the other side, the provisions will specify how that person too can appear, whether appear by yourself or by a lawyer or other aspect of his choice.
And
so
all of this is going to be
all these are expected to be coming up in the coming days.
In camera.
In camera, yes. So that's what the clause 8 says, that all proceedings under this article shall be held in camera, and the Chief Justice or chairman against whom the petition is made is entitled to be heard in his defense by himself or by a lawyer or other experts of his choice. Remember that when we started this conversation, we made reference to cases of Ejechum, we made a reference to the Tiger IPI and Derry case, where parts of this came up for interpretation to mean that what this means is that it actually includes the petition itself, is the reason media houses are unable to put out the full complement of the petitions out there, because the requirement is that everything should be in camera. Then follows the clause 9, which says that the president shall, in each case, act in accordance.
From the presidency, they're supposed to be sitting three times a week. 3 times a week, beginning tomorrow.
Yes.
And, but we don't know how long.
How long. So that's also another issue that has come up for discussion as to how long the committee is going to sit. I mean, again, I've seen a member of parliament make an argument forcefully that there ought to have been specific timelines. However, when you look at the law that they are working with, you do not find any timeline here that has been specified for the committee to do its work, except to just state, as we have shown, under 146(7) of the 1992 Constitution. So, Alfred, these are the matters that have come before us. And I mean, the coming days, we look forward to see how things are going to pan out in this. But you know, there are still pending matters in court as regards this particular matter.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And and that's where we need to also underscore the matters. And Dennis, appreciate you for this. It's very important detail and the dynamics that you bring to it. Martin Bebo is private legal practitioner. Counsel, good evening. Thank you for joining us here on Ghana Tonight. As reference has been made to the dictates of Article 146 in the Constitution 6 and beyond, as Dennis run through right now, how is the coming days going to look like in respect of this process of a hearing by this 5-member committee in this Chief Justice's petitions and then the subsequent recommendation? How's the coming days going to look like?
Yeah, so it's going to be blistering, right? Yeah, because the trial promises to be a lot of fireworks. Fireworks because of blistering, because, naturally, the Chief Justice is not going to take this lying down. She's going to come out fighting and firing all cylinders to be able to get an exoneration. So you can well imagine that would be, quite blistering. It's going to be intense, because she will deploy every arsenal available to her to get an exoneration. So it won't be easy. And so, yes, once they say the hearings are going to take place, yes, nobody is allowed in there, but I can well imagine that it's going to be a blend of what we do in the traditional courts and also space for the judges, that's the committee members, to be able to ask more questions than is allowed in the traditional courts we use. You see, when you go to court today, we do an adversarial system. That's to say, the parties prove their cases. Then there is an inquisitorial approach where it is rather the judge who investigates both parties to see who has a better case. We don't do the inquisitorial approach in the traditional court. We rather do adversarial. If you come the one that we say, he who alleges must prove. He who alleges must prove. That's what we're doing.
Other for any for in some eye so any ever money and I just was so a good with a measure pass the waging air fancy which are fair Eddie Mammy comment section. Young query, young could see near to us.
But under Article 146, it says it's an inquiry. So it allows the judges to do a lot of the investigations by themselves. Yeah, so the parties will do this, but the judges also, that's the committee members. Yeah, they are judges because they will come out with their recommendation. The judges, that's a 5-member committee, are allowed to do more investigations in the whole process. So this is how it will take. Each of the petitioners would come forward and then present his case. And I also mentioned that I won't be surprised that the committee will adopt what we do in court. Nowadays, in order to fast track the hearing, we have what we call filing of witness statements. That's to say, everything you want to tell the court, put it on paper. Of course, there are some rules. We can't go into the rules, but just putting it simply, you put everything you want to tell the committee into on paper, then attach those ones that you have paper to back. It's not every evidence that is paper or an article. Sometimes your evidence is what you see with your eyes, all the senses, ears, nose, etc. So if it's that type and it's not paper, you will say, I saw it with my eyes, or I heard with my ears, or I smelled it with my nose, etc. So put everything on paper. So the day you enter the box, the lawyer will just ask a few questions to show that you are the one who wrote, that's the witness. The witness wrote that statement. Once that is done, then the whole statement will be adopted by the court as examination in chief. So instead of the witness talking 1 hour, 2 hours, everything he wants to say is on paper, and in 5 minutes it's accepted by the court. So you see that we would have cut down time. Then the CJ's lawyers would then go ahead and ask questions of the witness to test whether the witness is telling the truth, and also tell the CJ's story through that witness. Yeah, you advance your case. When the witness is done, the witness has a right to call other witnesses, because this witness I mentioned is actually a petitioner. So let's say if it's Shining Stars, Mr. J, after Mr. J is done, they can call witnesses. Generally, they are not limited. The main rule generally is that don't line up, let's say, 10 people to all come and repeat the same thing. But apart from that, if they are saying different things, generally you are given a latitude on how many witnesses you call. So each witness will come into the box, come with a witness statement to make it faster, and afterwards there will be cross-examination until it's done. So now let's remember something key. Remember election 2020 petition, the EC refused to testify. The court ruled that the EC doesn't need to testify, right? Good. So in the same manner, in this case, when the Chief Justice lawyers have asked all the questions they want to ask, if they think they've destroyed the case of the petitioners and their witnesses, they can decide that the Chief Justice will not testify. It's not compulsory. If they think they've done a good case, they've demolished the whole case, they can say, oh, the Chief Justice will not testify. But if they think, well, they still want to, maybe there are some lingering things that for the avoidance of doubt, she should testify, then she'll testify. But it's not compulsory. She's not under any compulsion to testify, like what happened in the election 2020 petition when Jane Mensah was not compelled to testify.
And Counsel, some good detail and some education then on how the process will be like from tomorrow as this committee begins their hearing. I appreciate you for this education, but stay with me. I want to be able to stay with me because coming up next, Go and Sin No More. That's how the chapter appears to have closed on Sammy Gyamfi's dollar gift saga. That's it, at least at the level of the presidency. We're here from the
and I'm bring Kwan be me too fefe. I want some I also any eba. Oh, my name is Michelle, and now you're from Ghanatube so.